Your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward, never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with Natasha Black. It's the
Hit Back with Natasha Black is sponsored by the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, BTC, Boost Academy, Dwayne Sands of Elizabeth Estates, Nassau Motor, J.S. Johnson, and the Progressive Liberal Party.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Natasha Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I'm always about, you gotta feel it. When you don't feel it, you feel it. But there are days when you're just happy to be here. There's a lot of condolences now that we are saying. A lot more, my sincerest condolences. Rest in peace. A lot more. Wow. Today we added 15 new names, 15 numbers to the death toll today. Additional, we are almost at 400 deaths. We are over 160 people hospitalized, and we are heading into a general election. And so we got some things as a nation to always consider. We are going to, at the end of this week, CA and I, we're looking forward to some changes in the way we're going to be discussing this process. Again, a pivotal time that we're heading in, decisions have to be made. What are we doing? Are we moving forward, moving backwards, sideways? Are we going to be ambitious? Are we going to, forsake our fears and move on faith? What are we going to do? This is where every election cycle we have this debate. The undecided group, I think, is growing more, where we are more undecided than ever before. And many people, I believe, will decide to stay home or go on the beach, as the great Rodney Munka would say. Just go on the beach, buy your KFC, eat your bucket of chicken. Nope, we can't do that now. COVID on the loose. Say lappy. All right, so we got some things in the news. So, today's show is very interesting, and I'm so happy I'm having this show today. So today, we're going to be talking about something that we don't talk about, but we now know we need more than ever, is that conversation of electoral reform. And also, coming to the end of the show, we will be discussing how, the parameters of voting. Now we're learning, well, not learning, it was said before, but a lot more people are aware now for advanced polling. I know that there are candidates who are calling, incumbents who are calling their constituents and saying, if you're a senior, listen, let's go online, get you registered for this advanced polling. And this is where my group, Matt Aubrey, and those from org will help us understand what all that entails, this advanced polling. What does it mean? If you register online, you're not voting online, so you still have to go into a crowd or these appointments, etc. So stuff like that, that's important for us to know as we head into it. CA and I, starting tomorrow, will start looking at constituencies and candidates. Who we believe, what do these constituency needs? What do they need? And what do these candidates bring to the table? And we want you to call. Tell us, if you're in Bamboo Town, what does Bamboo Town need? Who do you believe will be the one to bring you forward into the next election? And we're doing this candidate by candidate. I believe that the coat of many colors that the apostle spoke of means that we've got to be intentional, right? We've got to be intentional and focus and zero in. So that's what I'm looking forward to as the week progresses. Anyways, we have to start the show though with I don't even know how to do this. I don't even know how to start it. So let's just go with it, right? Let's just do it. Let's just do it. So today, colleague, reporter here, one of the great reporters here, Jared Higgs, tweeted, Minister of National Security Marvin Dame says people in quarantine won't be allowed to vote. In quotation marks, you have people who are incarcerated on election day. You have people who are hospitalized. This is Mr. Dame speaking. You have people who are out of the country. They may be registered voters, but they can't vote, insinuating that, quarantine folks, unfortunately, you're not in the right number. So I said, well, later we find that maybe the minister wanted to not take it back, but said that he didn't really say it like that. So I said, well, we won't do that to the minister. Let him say his piece.
Voters who are in quarantine or have COVID on election day, any updates, any decisions made?
Well, what is, straightforward, what is quarantine? Quarantine is quarantine. If someone has COVID and they're quarantined, they're quarantined for a reason. And, this is, you have people who are incarcerated on election day. You have people who are hospitalized on election day. You have people who are out of the country on the election day. And they may be registered voters, but they can't vote because of the circumstances. And so, we'll see.
So is the position that quarantine and COVID positive voters will not be able to vote?
COVID positive voters, would you like to have a COVID positive voter next to you?
Not personally.
What does quarantine mean?
But
Quarantine.
What
the numbers are, I don't know. You're never going to have 100% voting on election day. No country can boast of that unless it's a country where it is designed that way. And so we have to accept the fact that those persons who are able to vote on election day should be encouraged and come out to vote. We have been a country, we continue to boast of our percentages during election day, and I don't expect that will change in any way. Bahamians love election day. They love voting. And so we should all be excited, aren't you?
Okay. All right. So someone says quarantine doesn't mean COVID positive, though. You're right on that. So that's interesting, right? So based on what the Minister of National Security said, Marvin Dames, if you are COVID positive or quarantining, there's no provision for you to vote. Let's go to Jamaica, August 31st, 2020. The government has given approval for people in quarantine, even those positive for coronavirus, COVID-19, to vote in the general election with adherence to strict protocols. According to a statement from the Office of the Prime Minister, people required to remain in quarantine, other than those who are required to remain in isolation from others, may leave quarantine once to vote during the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, September 3rd, or during the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on an earlier date, if eligible to do so, and shall immediately after voting return to quarantine. In addition, this is Jamaica 2020, right? In addition to wearing a mask over the nose and mouth, they are required to observe protocols of the polling station and maintain physical distancing. They must also travel to the polling station in a private vehicle with windows open and the air conditioning switched off. The driver and other passengers should also wear a mask at all times. Similarly, people required to remain in quarantine and isolation from others may leave quarantine once for the purpose, and it says again, similarly, people required to remain in quarantine and isolation from others may leave quarantine once for the purpose of voting during the hours of 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on September 3rd, or during the hours of 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on an earlier date, if eligible to do so, and shall immediately after voting return to quarantine and isolation from others. They are also required to notify the Ministry of Health and Wellness prior to leaving quarantine and wear a mask fitted to cover the nose and mouth, a face shield, gloves, and disposable gown. This is Jamaica, giving allowance for quarantined persons to vote, giving allowance for COVID-19 positive individuals to vote. This is Jamaica that has over 2 million persons. Yes, this was Jamaica when they were making a mandate. That's what Wells Holdness was doing, right? This was a COVID-19 mandate election for him as well. But making provisions. It continues, transportation to the polling station must be private with only a driver present in the vehicle, among other requirements outlined by the government. The announcement comes as more than 45,000 election day workers, police officers, and military personnel prepare to vote today. Someone says they can have separate locations altogether with protocols in place. Yes. So my thing is, we are disenfranchising voters consistently without trying to solve a problem. This has been a challenge for me. Problems are there for greatness to be revealed. You know what I mean? No wealthy or successful person you don't become wealthy or successful unless you really sort of solve a problem. You don't become great until you solve a problem. A problem is there to make you great. A problem is there so you solve it. Your mind gets excited and you get all turned on and turned up. But I mean, really, the fact that the minister would say, do you want someone with COVID-19 next to you? The person with COVID-19 didn't want COVID-19 either. They don't want to be next to themselves. Now we're creating this sort of this virus, this leper mentality. Obviously, nobody wants to be COVID positive. Nobody wants to do that. We're all trying to be safe. Well, most of us anyway. And so I didn't even like that sort of narrative, right? But then to be so flippant about it that, hey, you can't vote. Okay, that's just the lot in life. What? This is the one time for many they will have a say in how the country goes, a choice. And we, knowing that you called an election early, right? You called, your government called an election snap early. That's what you did. You called it early. But you called it early, and it's evident now that we didn't think this through. So it makes me wonder. It goes back to the why call it early. Was it truly, this, and then someone says, because they're not thinking through things. And it's probably, I don't know if you're saying probably the safest thing to do. But the safest, this is not a thing where other countries haven't done it. We've seen Jamaica do it. Set parameters, set times and structure so that people are not further disenfranchised by your snap election. Look, I don't know why we try to make this thing hard, but to me, it just comes across as laziness and an entitlement. Just plan it out. When did this, a person's right to vote, a constitutional right? No, we're not saying that we rip the Constitution from them, but this is the fundamental thing. This is what makes us citizens, right? This is the fundamental difference between me being a citizen and a resident. This is by far the most consequential one, because apparently being a citizen don't mean you get discounts and taxes. Second homeowner, dream on. You still got to work on first, but we digress. This to me should be one of those tenets that is desired by all, but it shows me that there's a fundamental disconnect on the rights of the citizenry, the empowerment access of the citizenry. The people are sick. I guess there's an image, right, that I've got to share. So there's some numbers, and it was doing a per capita look, right, at the Bahamas, Europe, and another destination, right? The Bahamas, Europe, and other destinations. Again, don't forget, yesterday's total, we added 15 new persons, and not new, now late, former deceased persons to the number. A friend of mine just told me about their person not making it. Another person they know not making it. Right? So when you look at where we rank on how we're dealing with this, new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in European Union, USA, Brazil, and the Bahamas on a per capita basis. And my God, we are rising above Brazil, Europe. Well, of course, we've got to be rising, right? We're 177th out of 180 countries. And our numbers aren't going away because of the distraction of COVID-19. 168 persons are in the hospital. We have crossed 3,000 positive cases for the month, and that's those who make it to the hospital, right? So now when it's a fundamental thing, a pivotal part of their right, you call a snap election, but you don't take into account that you're doing the snap election in the height of a third wave that took you a while to admit existed, in the height of a third wave that is now disenfranchising everyone, because there are a lot of people who you promised you weren't going to call in a snap election for, and now their transfers aren't done. You got Hubert Ingram, the former prime minister of the Free National Movement, saying, what I did was decided to call it in May. What Perry Christie did was decide to call it in May. Now, mind you, neither one of them did what they should have done, which was make the date fixed. But they were like, we created a pattern. Well, patterns without law or structure or anything that keeps people accountable is easily broken. But we're here ranking per capita. Oh my God. And now we're okay with disenfranchising people to vote. Like, this is someone says, let's call a spade a spade. Our PM doesn't believe in the rights of our common citizenry. I just think the response was so flippant. That the response was just too flippant for me. It was just too easy. And then I'll play it again.
It's been a question what's going to happen with those voters who are in quarantine or have COVID on election day. Any updates, any decisions made?
Well, what is, straightforward. What is quarantine? Quarantine is quarantine. If someone has COVID and they're quarantined, they're quarantined for a reason. And, this is, you have people who are incarcerated on election day. You have people who are hospitalized on election day. You have people who are out of the country on the election day. And they may be registered voters, but they can't vote because of the circumstances. And so, we'll see.
So is the position that quarantine and COVID positive voters will not be able to vote?
COVID positive voters, would you like to have a COVID positive voter next to you?
Not personally.
What does quarantine mean?
But
Quarantine.
What
the numbers are, I don't know. You're never going to have 100% voting on election day. No country can boast of that unless it's a country where it is designed that way. And so we have to accept the fact that those persons who are able to vote on election day should be encouraged and come out to vote. We have been a country, we continue to boast of our percentages during election day, and I don't expect that will change in any way. Bahamians love election day. They love voting. And so we should all be excited, aren't you?
That we all have to accept the fact. What? This is not a fact. This is not a fact. What is the facts are is that this administration is showing its lack of creativity once again. If the CDC doesn't lay it out for us, we have no plan. If the CDC doesn't say, you know what, this is a pandemic for the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, the prime minister may have never said it. But apparently, since there was not a problem for the United States, we got no solution either. Jamaica just did this. How do we disenfranchise, right? Said COVID patients and people in quarantine are still Bahamians. They are not less than. Provision should be made. Now, if you are incapacitated, obviously we can't wheel you out of your bed to vote. No, you're incapacitated. But I mean, my God, someone who's in quarantine could be fully asymptomatic. Jamaica, again, I will show you, read to you what Jamaica wrote. There was in an article in the Jamaica Observer, right? The Jamaica Observer, Monday, August 31st, 2020. This is literally a year ago today. 1 year ago today, Jamaica solved this problem. 1 year ago. Holiness, who was having his election as a mandate, doing the same as this prime minister, calling it a mandate, needing to make sure that people were on board, solve this problem. The government has given approval for people in quarantine, even those positive for coronavirus COVID-19 to vote in the general election with adherence to strict protocols. Just get creative. Here's how they got creative. According to a statement from the Office of the Prime Minister, people required to remain in quarantine, other than those who are required to remain in isolation from others, right, may leave quarantine once to vote during the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on September 3rd, or during the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on an earlier date if eligible to do so, and shall immediately return to quarantine, in addition to wearing a mask over the nose and mouth. And see, they give you the date. So you know, everybody who might have been in quarantine, travel on that day. That's your day to vote. Quarantine people, y'all got that time on this particular day to vote, right? Go ahead, go get your vote on. Oh my God, man. We can't even do something. We can't get creative. You know, to say so flippantly that people who are in quarantine trying to do the right thing cannot be accommodated because they are lepers in a way, right? Lepers. And the government knows that there are more people out there who did not get the PCR test. So how are you ensuring that the people who stand on the line are not COVID positive? You cannot ensure that. Because if there are 150 people positive today, it is fair, based on the models, that if you're going at 150 to 200 a day, that you really have 600 people to 800 people positive in country at that day. So you can't say, oh, well, those who are in quarantine, that's only those who told you or who had to get a PCR test. So they are disenfranchised by doing the right thing. Or maybe the most unfortunate, that they've had a loved one die, didn't make it to the hospital. Is this government afraid of voters? Are we not being creative because it's just not in our nature? It is not in their nature to solve a problem, just create them and leave it for us to figure out and argue about. Someone says this doesn't make any sense. I completely agree with the Prime Minister. Then you're not a disenfranchised person. But if this problem has been solved, solve the problem. I don't think it's that hard to me. It's not that hard. You know, it's so easy for folks, for folks who have, it's easy to dismiss those who don't. That's just my thinking. You're not the disenfranchised party, so you don't feel anyone's pain. It's called empathy. C'est la vie. When we come back, though, just solve the problem, man. This one, I don't think this one is hard. Just solve it. How many people? We don't even know how many people are in quarantine. A separate location is easy. A separate location is easy. Right? Someone says, read the Constitution. Incapacity is not quarantine. That is taking away the people's rights. Now, if you're thinking that Dames or Minutes just thought of this, then you are wrong. God help us. A separate location is easy. I agree. Just a separate location even. There's so many places you could take them. Someone says they always seek the advice, but don't call other countries that already did this. I'm just saying, for those who are disenfranchised, this ain't right. Now, there are some good things. We're going to talk about that in the show, but I want to pivot. And when we come back, we'll pivot, because I want to pivot slightly on this thing called election reform. This whole thing with snap elections. And one of the things that I've been noticing in this process is that because of the election being a quick one and a snap one, and it being COVID time, I find that the smaller parties, the third parties, are finding themselves also in a way disenfranchised, right? They don't have the resources to buy up all of the ads on TV shows or radio stations. They don't have the resources, and then there's no more freebies, right? There's no more freebies. There's no more come on my show and I'll give you free airtime because I work for a company. And that's it across the board. Now it's time for assets to be laid bare. Now, some of these people just rich, apparently. A lot of these third-party people are rich, but they ain't got no money for ads. So now do we need electoral reform? Do we need electoral reform for us so that we can have campaign finance reform that doesn't allow a party, or like the Lakers back in the day, when the Lakers could buy up every great talent because they had Mr. Bus, who could buy up all the talent with all of his money all the time. Same thing with the Yankees back in the day when they could have bought up all of the talent because they had all of this money, right? So we have to now see if there's reform needed. And that's what we're going to be doing on the next side of the break. Someone says unjust laws must be disobeyed. Said they're lazy, they ain't want to do nothing. Or consulting with the official opposition for their views. Someone says, now that it's in your face or affecting you personally, you finally want action. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We will be back right after this.
BTC gives more savings on the best fiber internet. It's super fast with super savings in every package. Compare and see for yourself. Enjoy up to 150 megabits per second plus 157 TV channels and unlimited home phone minutes for only $99.99.
Best rates, no rates.
Visit a BTC store to sign up for the best internet experience on the Bahamas' best fiber network. Conditions apply.
The Water and Sewage Corporation advises customers and residents of Cordero Avenue between Market Street and Blue Hill Road that the corporation will be carrying out improvement works for 15 days from August 18th, 2021 to September 6, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. As a result, customers should note that they may experience some interruption in water supply, and residents and the general public should note that there will be interruptions in traffic flow around the work area daily, resulting in traffic diversions. The corporation apologizes for any inconvenience caused as they work to improve their level of service.
The PLP is hosting an economic summit where financial experts and business leaders share ideas and plans for transforming the Bahamian economy. Speakers will discuss the PLP's economic plan, a new blueprint to create a Bahamian economy that works for everyone. Discussions include opportunities in high tech, renewable energy, and training for entrepreneurs. Go to plpeconomicsummit.com and learn how you can be part of a new Bahamian economy.
This has been a paid political announcement by the PLP.
Rejuvenate, refresh, treat yourself. Immerse yourself in total comfort. Pamper yourself. After all, you're worth it. Relax. Rid yourself of all life's stresses. At Baja Retreat Anti-Aging Spa, you will find everything you need to enhance your body and spirit. Call today at 323-6711 and begin your journey to serenity at Baja Retreat Anti-Aging Spa.
When I got prostate cancer, my family didn't know if I was going to live at Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Within days, I got an appointment. They presented me with treatment options, and they set up a robotic prostatectomy. When my scans came back, there are no signs of cancer. They don't see you as a number. They see you as a part of the family. I'm going on with my life. It's a real gift.
Call us at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
Hello, Bahamas. My name is Dr. Dwayne Sands. I was born and raised in Centerville, in the heart of the valley, Nassau, Bahamas. I'm a proud Bahamian. I've been fortunate to represent the great people of Elizabeth for the last 5 years. It has always been my dream to serve my country, and I have been involved in the political process on the front line since 2009. I am very, very proud of the support of my family, who have been with me from the beginning and who are still with me to this day. In particular, my wife, Larica, and all of my children. And actually, there's quite a few of them. I'm actually a cardiovascular surgeon. What that means is I take on the sickest people with the biggest problems every day. And so for me, the political process to deal with the challenges facing our country is pretty much par for the course. It's what I do every day. I am happy to be a part of the great team of the Free National Movement under the leadership of Dr. Hubert Minnis. We are indeed Elizabeth Strong.
This has been a paid political announcement by the F&M candidate for Elizabeth.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back. Nahaja Black.
And we're back listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Let me read some texts before I bring on my guests. Mrs. Black, both PMs should this just go away and sit small. They had a chance to fix a date for election and did nothing. Some PM minister has the right to call it when he sees fit, correct? Good afternoon, Marvin Dames. Better hope he is not in quarantine during election day. Also, many quarantined persons will vote because we have no systems in place to track them. Hey, Nahaja, after Jamaica, this is a good one. After Jamaica they had their highest spikes in history of the pandemic at the time. Wholeness was blamed for it. It was a gamble. Several other Caribbean nations that had elections after Jamaica did not take the same approach, learning from it. And I like that last line, learning from it. So then you go to what do we learn from it if this is indeed the case, right? So can we have one place or space? How many people are in quarantine right now, right? Is it suitable to have one place or space? Is there something where we should have, if we knew we were going to call election and the government knows when they're going to call it, they decide the date, could we have created some sort of mail-in system for folks? We are only 400,000 people, y'all. It ain't like we're a county in a state somewhere. We're a county in a city. We're a small county, okay? I mean, the complexities, and it shows you how much we have to grow as a country. When these things that are solvable and have been solved to a certain extent. I mean, the United States did mail-in ballots. Obviously, that would have been new for us. And because of our levels of shadiness, right? Do you trust mail-in ballots at this point? My prime minister said we were corrupt, so corrupt. 500 million in corruption, by the way. So I don't know about the mail-in ballots. I barely could trust when they take the ballot out of the classroom and take it somewhere to get counted. But we digress. But that's the thing. You learn from it. Well, then how do you fix it? Would there be 2 or 3 other spaces or places where you could then have persons who you know are quarantined, because those quarantined persons are on a list that they can go to, and you set the time alphabetically. They tried to do it with us with groceries, for God's sake, during the pandemic and the lockdown. They tried to manage all of us for food. You can't manage a few thousand people who have COVID to vote. You can't do that. Brave Davis told the people to go and write. Okay, that one. Lady Black, the Minister government is trying to win this general election by default. Someone says the contact tracing is lacking anyway. I was exposed to a COVID positive person, but I was never contacted. I felt some of the symptoms. I quarantined and treated myself at home. I'm fine now. And that's the thing. We are doing this election in the midst of a COVID wave, of a third wave. I don't think it's just letting COVID people who you know based on what contact tracing has done, that they are going to be the reason why the numbers spike. The reason why the numbers will spike, whether or not they show up, is because there are thousands of us who are COVID positive, but are not on the Ministry of Health's list. And so we will go out and vote, and we will stand on the line, and we will stand behind our brothers and sisters and supposedly social distance. So the spike is having, not because persons who are COVID positive, who you know were let out, maybe, and that's definitely, I'm sure, was a factor, but that you're doing this election during this time. And so that is really the precipitating factor. And physicians that I've spoken to are very upset that we are having this election in the height of COVID-19. At the same time, it is what it is. All right. So we got joining us, and I want to just, like I said, pivot just a little bit. Someone says, yes, good afternoon, Nahaja. Yes, the PM is afraid. the less persons voting, the better chance for him. Y'all ain't easy, boy. So this government is disingenuous. Lord. Okay, we're going to switch gears now, because I want to talk about electoral reform. And I want to talk about electoral reform with a group, Civil Society Bahamas, that really has been trumpeting the need for electoral reform and what it is. What is electoral reform? We've got joining us Dr. Anthony Hamilton, and I think I see Marilyn Zonical. And Marilyn, if you are there, unmute your mic just so that I know that you are ready and available. But in the interim, Anthony Hamilton, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Madam Black.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Hold on. There you are. Marilyn, how are you?
I am fine by God's grace.
Excellent. Listen,
And
I'm so
yourself?
happy that I can't complain. What's today? I could complain. My people know I could complain.
Well, I'll tell you another reason why I'm fine. Today is the official birthday of my father, Joseph Alexander Zonical. He is officially 102 today. I say officially because he said his mother said he was actually born on the 31st of July, but it was recorded the 31st of August. So his birth certificate says the 31st of August. So our family is particularly blessed today.
102? You said 102.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And lucid.
Wow. That is amazing. God is good. That is exciting stuff right there. I'll tell you. Congratulations to your dad. Happy birthday to your wonderful father, Mr. Zonical. It's a pleasure, such a pleasure to have you all on. Let's talk a bit about this. Anthony and Marilyn, if you don't mind, first names, if you guys don't mind. Let's talk about this.
That's fine. Are you not saying Mr. Archer, A. Leonard Archer should be with us as well?
No, not yet. So as soon as he clicks on, hopefully we'll get him on,
And Attorney Kane Smith.
Yeah, as soon as they log in, we'll have them on. So it's just us three right now. Okay. So what is electoral reform, guys? One of these things is that you guys sent out a presser, and I thought it was fascinating. And I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'd like to read a clip.
That's fine.
An excerpt from it. And, I thought to myself, this is pretty sharp, right? This is different thinking, right? Civil Society of Bahamas speaks to the nation in the spirit of the historic ethos of civil society as the conscience of society, demonstrating the empathy and selflessness of the Good Samaritan. The signs which point to the imminence of a general election should not only provoke excitement and euphoria, but also reflection after focus on fundamentals. A general election is a trumpet call, not just for potential change, but more importantly, for an evaluation of stewardship on the part of every bona fide citizen, ordinary or policy contributor implementer, every leader, current or aspirant. Evaluation based on what? Current and proposed political platforms? No. An evaluation based on our national foundation and values enshrined in the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, especially its preamble, our National Bill of Rights, our de facto, already approved through largely dormant, succinct national plan. Proposals for electoral reform should be directly evaluated against the principles in the preamble, right? And you guys go on. An independent boundaries commission as a guarantor against the manipulation of political slavery or bondage. Boy, that was deep. Y'all done hit me deep. Y'all sound like I was preaching in this letter. Accompanying enumeration of voters for transparency beyond permanent registration. Campaign finance reform, which honors unity rather than eroding it through financial advantage, and consolidation of democracy by mandatory responsiveness to citizens' needs through Member of Parliament recall. Bada bada bing. All right, now. I love all four of those things that y'all said right there. Anthony, that was a mouthful. And we need electoral reform when?
Now, as a matter of fact, we indicated it's not too late as we released that press statement. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity on behalf of the civil society sector in general, and Civil Society of Bahamas in particular, the apex body for the civil society organizations of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, stressing the fact of unity and the need for the citizenry and residents to come together in a collective fashion that we experience the reform that we're making reference to. Joining me would be members of the Governance and National Affairs Committee, which was tasked with formulating this particular release in the primary aspect, and in conjunction with the fellow directors, the information was actually released to the public. When we look at what is coming forward, we are in a very peculiar time not only for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, for the world at large. As we notice, for us in particular, we've had the Dorian experience. Then there are challenges after challenges after challenges, and they demand that we manage these challenges. So the Dorian experience, the COVID experience, as you were sharing earlier, some of the challenges that are emerging, I refer to this as a pregnancy test. And simply put, with regard to the pregnancy test, we either give birth or we abort. And in this instance of our society at large, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, I think we're in a position right now, as we acknowledge the crisis, there's an appropriate response to that crisis. So we have what I would refer to as the cry, the call, and the response. It's a system and is demanding that we give it adequate attention. So the cry, all the things that are stepping up to challenge us, is speaking to where we would have had deficiencies in our society at large. And having the deficiencies, once we recognize those deficiencies and acknowledge it, it now demands us to take responsibility as citizens and residents of this nation. When that demand comes to us, it means that we must respond appropriately so that we bring solutions. And a lot of times we hear a lot of things being said, but the reality of it is, when we acknowledge, we must step up to the plate, take responsibility, and then bring solutions to the table. And that's what we in the civil society sector sought to do. You recall that during the Dorian experience and the COVID experience, the NGOs, as we refer to them, the non-government organizations of the Commonwealth, stepped up to the plate big time.
Yeah.
And on the strength of that, recognizing that's a classic example of how we need to partner, how we need to share with each other the gifts, the talents, the resources that we have. And this demands a tripart governance structure. And so today, the civil society sector, on the heels of Civil Society Bahamas and the other NGOs, we sought to step to the fore to make some recommendations and demonstrate that we're prepared to help to work through this process of finding solutions for the nation.
And in particular, electoral reform. And that's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to get into what is electoral reform? How does that affect us on an everyday level? And you hit some 4 points, but I want to get to that. What is really electoral?
May I intervene, Madam Black?
Please, go right ahead.
Okay, I just want to underscore what President Hamilton has said in 2 ways. And first, I'll just comment, as you are aware, this is one of the most emotive issues that it could be addressed by our country. And also it's a very complex, at the end of the day, to respond to you, there are 2 key fundamental issues. One, this electoral reform, the solutions, etc., is the consolidation of our democracy. Secondly, our reforms point to the Constitution, particularly the preamble, which indicates how we do it. We've come up with all sorts of proposals and recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's there in the preamble. And if you would permit me to read the next paragraph of our public statement where you stopped.
Please, go on.
Thank you. We say to the nation, are your politics and parties contributing to reinforcing the foundation stones of our preamble, or dislodging them as deemed archaic and worthless? Is the superstructure of this foundation a Category 5 resistant or facade of a movie set? So basically, we are challenging our fellow citizenry to say, when you cut through all the talk and all the platforms and all the proposals, whether they're from the predominant political parties or the aspirant political parties and candidates, that at the end of the day, is our democracy being truly consolidated? And the proposals that we recommend are checks and balances and yardsticks by which we can evaluate whether indeed these are truly our democracy is truly being consolidated. And the ultimate litmus test is, are we achieving what is in the preamble to our Constitution?
Yeah. And I'm so happy. Can I just say, first of all, I need to figure a way where people can read this, because whoever wrote this statement or news release, is poetic. It was a sermon that was in written form. Because I love when you say, are your politics and parties contributing to reinforcing the foundation stones of our preamble, or dislodging them as deemed archaic and worthless? Is it the superstructure of this foundation? Is the superstructure of this foundation category 5 plus resistant, or in the facade of a movie set? That's deep. So now so when we talk about this, right? The process of electoral reform and what you guys are saying, if you're just tuning in, Civil Society Bahamas guests joining us. We have Dr. Anthony Hamilton and Marilyn T. Zonical joining us. The process of electoral reform, or the need for electoral reform, from your vantage point, lady and gent, how big is the need for us? Because when you talk about an independent boundaries commission, I'm like, amen, right? When you say accompanying enumeration of voters, I need to know what that one is. I don't know what that is. Campaign finance reform, been calling for that for years. Consolidation of democracy by mandatory responsiveness to citizens' needs through the member of parliament recall, totally there for it. How important, if you can explain to us, how important are these pillars or foundational pillars to a functioning democracy? And how important is it to us, the Bahamas, in the state that we are in now?
Well, if you take each one of them, the first one, an independent boundaries commission, we also say that this should be enshrined in law as an act of parliament, so that there will not be political manipulation of what a boundaries commission can do. Because as you know, and as is indicated in our public statement, a boundaries commission really sets the tone for how each area of our archipelago would be represented and have a voice, and how that voice would be represented in Parliament. So, as has been indicated in the statement, it's a commission that should be established by Parliament against slavery or bondage. So, again, I would say to you and listeners, take each one of these pillars, as you call them, and look at our preamble to our Constitution. And you will see, for example, in the preamble, it says that towards the end of the preamble, the establishment of a free and democratic sovereign nation founded on spiritual values, and in which no man, woman, or child shall ever be slave or bondsman to anyone, or their labor exploited, or their lives frustrated by deprivation. And if you have a system where there is an opportunity for manipulation, then of course that is not going to be achieved. If you look at Pillar 2, enumeration, I wish our director, our fellow colleague rather, Attorney Keene Smith were here to give a more legal definition. But in essence, enumeration means that you actually go on the ground. It's like a census. You actually go on the ground and ensure that whoever is on the voters register is indeed that person and eligible to be on the voting register. There are some countries in Canada, Saskatchewan in particular, who until recently, this was their main way of compiling their register. But they found some practical challenges. Obviously, for example, you go and someone is not there and you have to go back and, it's a labor intensive exercise. But at the end of the day, it's also an exercise which is worth it, because then you truly have a clean voters register. And we applaud the government for the permanent register, which is now being instituted. But what we're saying is that until we have a culture of democracy, and obviously there's no culture if you have a boundaries commission, for example, that didn't even get to have its report really discussed because of the dissolution of Parliament. And if you have, we go on in the public statement to talk about how candidates are selected. If they're selected by private internal groups, i.e., political party councils. The whole system then is not the democratic system that is enshrined in our Constitution via the preamble. So again, until there is a culture of genuine democracy by these pillars as a start, being the yardsticks by which we can affirm that we truly have a representative, true democracy, then we would say combine enumeration with the permanent register. And then in terms of...
Hold on one second, Marilyn. I hate to interrupt, but let's take a quick news break. When we come back, we'll dive in a bit more on this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio. We're talking about electoral reform. Do we need it? We will be back right after.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good afternoon, Bahamas. You're listening to the Guardian News Network. I'm Taylor Ferguson. Here's what's making news. Thank you for tuning in. More than a month after the Public Hospitals Authority revealed the morgue at Princess Margaret Hospital is overwhelmed with bodies, Health Minister Renwood Wells says they're still looking at how they can resolve that issue.
Call the particular funeral homes where there's already arrangements with family members so that they can speed up the process. We can put it out again to the general public that they need to come and collect their loved ones. The government has in the past also in circumstances, because we do have some infants who are in the morgue, and folks have not necessarily come back to claim them. This would have been in the process of birth. And the government in the past, with the permission of family members, would have buried those children for those family members.
PLP leader Philip Davis addressing the nation last night, promising an end to emergency orders and the travel health visa if elected. He also criticized government's handling of this pandemic, describing the mistakes it made as avoidable.
179 out of 180. And yet, the self-appointed competent authority is dancing on a stage.
There is still no definitive decision from Cabinet on whether quarantined persons would be allowed to vote in the advance poll or on Election Day, but outside Cabinet today, Health Minister Renwood Wells said his ministry is taking this position.
From the Ministry of Health standpoint, we're taking the position that they probably will not be able to vote. But again, as I've always said, that has to come from the Prime Minister via the Cabinet of the Bahamas. And think about it now. How are you going to let someone who is in quarantine, who has the potential to infect other persons, to go out into a polling station?
That's what's making news. I'm Taylor Ferguson. AP News is coming up next.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Biden, Afghanistan. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden defends the evacuation from Afghanistan, during which more than 100,000 people, including some 5,500 Americans, made it out after the country fell to the Taliban.
90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out.
Biden says he had two choices after taking office.
Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war.
Texas Republican Congressman Michael McCall.
We left Afghanistan as the Taliban celebrated their victory.
And we've all seen the images and how sickening it is that we had an unconditional surrender to the Taliban.
I'm Tim McGuire.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We've got joining us some persons here, directors, executives from Civil Society Bahamas, Dr. Anthony Hamilton, Marilyn T. Zonical, and Director Leonard Archer. Firstly, again, thank you all so much for joining the show.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to have you all on. So as we were saying, before I interrupted you, Marilyn, and please forgive me for that, but you were finishing off on your thought there with regard to electoral reform. Why do we need it? In particular, I think you were talking about if actually let me not ask to make sure, because I'm still on my enumeration, right? But where were we, Marilyn?
We had just finished remuneration. We had two more left. Campaign finance reform and recall of member of parliament recall.
Yeah, and then the campaign finance reform for me, and let me introduce Mr. Leonard Archer to the show. Director Archer, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on and joining us, and that we continue this conversation on what you guys have presented is the need for electoral reform, a challenge, I would say, to all of us to pursue the tenets of electoral reform. So let's go back to it, Marilyn. In terms of the next part of it, number 3.
Sorry, go ahead.
Campaign finance reform.
You say why? I think, yes. Why don't you, because you have read very eloquently what's in our public statement, go to point G, Nahaja, and subpoint 3, where it talks about campaign reform, and you will see that what Civil Society Bahamas is attempting to achieve, not just mental assent to what is needed to be done, but actually how it can be done, and then holding political parties and accountable. If you truly want democracy, if you truly want these pillars of democracy, then this is how you do it. And if you're not doing it, then it's just lip service. So if you could look at sub 3, and that sets it out, I think, more clearly than I can explain.
And let me read it. Campaign finance reform with the following checks and balances. A limit on the amount a candidate or political party can spend individually or in combination on an election in New Providence constituency, with a slightly larger amount to be allowed for a Family Island constituency. A limit on the amount that a candidate can spend of his or her own money on an election campaign to ensure that elections are not reserved for or bought by wealthy individuals. Only Bahamian citizens can make financial contributions to candidates and political parties. Child, well, a lot of people I heard this lap wasn't gonna run then. But I digress. Candidates and political parties to report annually to IBEC, and the IBEC would be what again?
The Independent Boundaries Electoral Commission.
Okay, makes good sense. And so on all contributions received and how the money was spent, reporting to list the names of contributors, the amount of the contribution, and the date the contribution was received. The spending report will state the amount of the expedition, the name of the recipient of the expenditure, and the services or goods received, and the date of the expenditure. Reports to be published by the end of January each year, and a special report will be issued within 2 months after an election. The amounts of contributions to be agreed, and political parties will be fined for violations of the campaign finance regulations. Party officials and candidates to be subjected to fines for gross violation of regulations, as well as imprisonment. Let me just say this, child, this is that right there to me is one of those bigger policy endeavors that can really change it. Director Archer, why is campaign finance reform so important?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's because elections ought not to be bought. In other words, a person's electability ought not to be based on the amount of money they can raise. It ought to be based on their ideas and their suggestions for the development of the country. And therefore, if you limit the amount of money that a candidate or a party can spend, and limit to an amount that is reasonable, so that all the parties in the election can raise the same, can have the same amount of money, then you will have the competition based on ideas as opposed to based on available finance.
Yeah. And how important is it? Why is it so important that the contributions come from Bahamians?
Because you don't want your elections bought by foreigners, which, a large foreign company who has a particular interest can spend a lot of money with a particular party and influence the outcome of the election. And at the end of the day, it will be to their benefit. It could be to their benefit. That's not what democracy should be about. And the one way to assure that doesn't happen is to have proper finance reform.
Anthony, Dr. Hamilton, I want to ask you this now. With all of that said, you guys presented this news release. What are we hoping to happen? What is the Civil Society Bahamas? What is Civil Society Bahamas, all of its network and NGOs that fall under it? What are you hoping is the outcome of this mandate? And is it delivered to someone in particular?
Yes, generally speaking, there are two planks that will take this at. The reality of it is that we need to step back to the preamble of our Constitution. This is a matter of re-education, training, and development. In essence, we need to be thinking. And in a lot of instances, the emotions is riding during the course of the electoral process. Many of us forget to think objectively and realistically, holistically. And so when we go back to the preamble of the Constitution, one of the salient things that comes forward, I'm convicted that our forefathers had a vision for this nation. In addition to having a vision for this nation, they had expectations of the citizenry and residents of this nation. And when we take a look at those, we recognize that people are the most important assets and investments of any nation. And so what we're simply speaking to is that whatever is done with regard to our governance is always supposed to be in the best interest of the citizenry and residents of the nation. And so what we're seeking to do is provoke, challenge, and incentivize the citizenry to take another look at what this nation is really supposed to be about in light of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the salient galvanizing planks of this nation to recognize ourselves as Bahamians and having a serious interest and concern for the future of this nation. When we think of this, particularly for the youth, I'll pull in something here that I think would help to bring this forward. We have two things. Either we are selfish and we continue to go down the selfish track, or we are selfless and we seek to go in another direction. To drill down with regard to selfishness, selfishness breeds corruption, corruption breeds contamination, conspiracies. And so when we look at this, if we are selfish and we move to unfairness, injustices, which graduates to corruption, conspiracy, and cultural contamination, we ought to be looking at the flip side of this, because that's failure. When we surmise that selfish track is actually leading us to failure, we want to move the nation into good success results. And that expectation, I believe, is a general consensus of the citizenry of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we want to see better results for the nation at large. And so when we move from the selfish plank, we go to the selfless plank and we speak to fairness.
Yeah.
We speak to justice. We speak to purity. We speak to integrity. We speak to cultural excellence. I think that's the environment that all of us would be pleased to experience and be proud of as a nation.
Is this something that's hard to do, Anthony, Dr. Hamilton? Do you think that electoral reform is something that is hard to do? Is that something that can be done in one sitting in the House? Is it expensive? Do we need offices and boards? What is the challenge with why we haven't done electoral reform?
We made a statement earlier with regard to taking responsibility. Every citizen, every resident of this nation has a responsibility in this process. And it can be done. We are speaking to the fact that this can be done, but it's a collective decision. Now, when you speak to the civil society sector at large, we're speaking about inclusion and consultation with regard to the governance process for the nation. And it has three planks. I often say that with regard to the people or the citizenry and residents, there are two bites of the cherry. What we have in the first instance is that we have the electoral process because the citizenry are voters and taxpayers. That's followed by a plank of the business community, who are taxpayers and voters. And then we move to the government, who are the tax collectors, and they dispense with the taxes. The voters actually vote in the representatives in the House of Parliament, but they must also be gatekeepers. When we speak to the fact of the recall process for representatives, we're speaking to trying to ensure that proper performance takes place to the benefit of the entire society. And each member of Parliament, each representative in the House of Parliament has an obligation to its citizenry, particularly the constituents that they're representing, to make the best effort in representing the nation at large to the benefit of all of the citizenry.
You know, something that was interesting in what you guys presented was that you actually gave a format on how to recall. Is that, and I wanted to ask, because honestly, I don't know, is that structure in our Constitution? No, right? We don't have a recall system at all anywhere in our legislation, is there?
No, we don't. And
Nowhere.
allow Mr. Archer to expand on that.
No, there isn't, and there aren't many constitutions that I'm aware of where this provision exists, but it does exist. For instance, you might know that in California at the moment, there's a recall petition that the governor is being recalled, and it's done on the basis of a percentage of citizens signing a petition. And once the number of citizen signatures reach a certain percentage, an automatic recall is triggered. And we're suggesting that we should have something similar in the Bahamas, that the citizens in a constituency, the voters who are registered in that constituency, if they are dissatisfied with the performance of their member of parliament, that they organize a petition, that their parameters be set, that within so many days, so many signatures must be accumulated.
Yeah.
And if they can get the correct number, then that member has to resign. Now, of course, that member can run again, but at least the citizens will have had a chance to elect someone else if they so choose. And
Yeah.
we're suggesting that that be a part of the electoral reform going forward.
And I enjoyed that. When I say I enjoyed it, I enjoyed reading it. It was an idea, right? Like 25% is what is suggested in your press release. I think 25% of the constituents, and then in a period of 14 or so days. Marilyn, your thoughts?
Yes, 25% of the registered voters over a period of 10 consecutive working days. But I'd also like to add to what President Hamilton and Director Archer said in response to your question about where is Civil Society Bahamas going with these proposals. And the thinking in Civil Society Bahamas is that we've already distilled these proposals in a summary statement. And the thinking is that whoever is the next formally presented to the government for action, because as was already indicated, some of these we're proposing that they be enshrined in legislation. And so we are also thinking of actually reviewing the current parliamentary act, the Voters Act, to already suggest to the next administration how these proposals could be incorporated even into the act.
You know, it will be a great day if we can get
Could I
electoral
also,
reform. Go
yes.
ahead.
Could I
Director.
also add that the reform isn't going to take place unless the people want it.
True. Yes.
The government isn't going to just do it because some of the things will, perhaps I think they will consider not in their best interest. And so what we are hoping is that the general public, the voters, will become seized of these ideas and insist that the government, the next government, it'll have to be now, will do them. And starting with the Boundaries Commission, where it's an independent body, it sets the boundaries, and therefore that the voters will choose their member of parliament and not the member of parliament choose their voters.
That's right.
But you see, it isn't going to happen unless the people, the ordinary citizen of the Bahamas, decides that they don't like what's happening and want change.
So how do we do that? Do we march? Do we demonstrate? Do we do what how do the Bahamian people activate ourselves? How do we activate ourselves for this level of change?
Well, first of all, we disseminate the information, and of course, that is what's happening today is the beginning of that process of the dissemination of the information. We hope, of course, to have a wider dissemination as well, that there be town hall meetings and other forms of dissemination of the ideas contained in the proposal. And once the information is widely known, then of course we can encourage people to be active. And demonstrations are one way to do it, because if the members of parliament, of the government, see that hundreds or thousands of people are marching, saying this is what we want you to do as our government, then of course in many instances they will do it, because if they don't do it, they know that there's a chance that they might get voted out.
Yeah, voted out, or we'll wait that 5 years, or we get rid of them earlier without a recall system. I like what you're thinking, guys, but we gotta go. I want to thank Dr. Anthony Hamilton, Director Leonard Archer, and Marilyn Zonical for joining us from Civil Society Bahamas for a chance to just chat briefly on this electoral reform. And the ideas are not new to Bahamians, but the construct, putting them all together, having them read out, getting an idea of what they are. Some folks are saying, hey, listen, the ideas are good, but they could use some freshing up for us as a country. And I'm sure that there's a place where people can create or send some of their ideas. Where can people reach out to Civil Society Bahamas and express some of their thoughts and views?
There's a website. Yes, go ahead, Madam Zonville.
Okay, I just wanted to, if I would be permitted, before President Hamilton, you give the contact details. I want to quote a well-known phrase from Shakespeare, specifically Julius Caesar, Act 4, Scene 3. There is a tide in the affairs of men which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. And to say that we in the Bahamas, we have a prophetic destiny, the very fact that our national anthem says, till the road you trod leads unto your God, and see how the world marks the manner of your bearing. It indicates that there is a global destiny for these little islands in the Atlantic. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can go to, we got to go real quick. So exactly, Dr. Hamilton?
Yes, civilsocietybahamas.org or civilsocietybahamas at gmail.com would be an email address. And there's a website of civilsocietybahamas.org that persons can gain more information. And we should have this information posted on the website as well for those who desire to get further acquainted with the content of the information we were sharing.
Gentlemen, lady, thank you all so much for the time that you've shared with us on the show. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by my good friend. I always say now he's my good friend, Matt Aubrey from org. We're going to be talking about the things that you need to know to vote. Early elections, advanced polling is here. Do you know all the details? Can you vote? Apparently, if you're in quarantine and got COVID, stay at home. You can't vote. That's pretty much the rule there. Sorry, but life ain't easy for you, right? They'll probably tell you, go get vaccinated. That's probably the narrative. Anyways, so we're going to have the questions and answer period. Org has been really good with great resource for us, always providing great resources. But everyone, you know, I'm looking at this political cycle. I'm looking at this campaign cycle. As I did the last one and the one before, I voted 3 times, right? 3 times. That ages me, I'll tell you. That already just tells you I'm older than I need to be. And in those processes of voting 3 times, I feel like I've done it all the same. It ain't nothing changing, right? But we're doing a lot of talking and a little bit. I'm actually very impressed that we've marched more, right? Like we got our marching shoes from the last administration, right? We marched on them. And we started to march on these guys. You remember keep the corned beef, some foolishness like that. That was catchy. But in all of this, are the reforms happening? Are the real tangible things that we need? Are they happening that could really sort of propel us forward? A lot of lip service, man. And so now we need to figure out how to make those things work. Electoral reform is huge. It's big, and we need it. All right, we'll be back though. We'll be back after this. Get your questions. What questions do you have about this voting period? You got any concerns, any questions? Give us a call. We want your call and thoughts. We will be back right after.
When I got prostate cancer, my family didn't know if I was going to live. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, within days, I got an appointment. They presented me with treatment options, and we set up a robotic prostatectomy. When my scans came back, there are no signs of cancer. They don't see you as a number, they see you as a part of the family. I'm going on with my life. That's a real gift.
Call us at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
The Water and Sewage Corporation advises customers and residents of Cordero Avenue between Market Street and Blue Hill Road that the corporation will be carrying out improvement works for 15 days from August 18th, 2021 to September 6, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. As a result, customers should note that they may experience some interruption in water supply, and residents and the general public should note that there will be interruptions in traffic flow around the work area daily, resulting in traffic diversions. The corporation apologizes for any inconvenience caused as they work to improve their level of service.
Hello, Bahamas. My name is Dr. Dwayne Sands. I was born and raised in Centerville, in the heart of the valley, Nassau, Bahamas. I'm a proud Bahamian. I've been fortunate to represent the great people of Elizabeth for the last 5 years. It has always been my dream to serve my country, and I have been involved in the political process on the front line since 2009. I am very, very proud of the support of my family, who have been with me from the beginning and who are still with me to this day. In particular, my wife, Lorica, and all of my children. And actually, there's quite a few of them. I'm actually a cardiovascular surgeon. What that means is I take on the sickest people with the biggest problems every day. And so for me, the political process to deal with the challenges facing our country is pretty much par for the course. It's what I do every day. I am happy to be a part of the great team of the Free National Movement under the leadership of Dr. Hubert Minnis. We are indeed Elizabeth strong.
This has been a paid political announcement by the FNM candidate for Elizabeth.
Many people wonder, what makes Boost Academy unique? Maybe it's our 8-to-1 student-staff ratio, the emphasis we place on student individuality, our focus on numeracy, literacy, and creating better citizens by sharpening students' critical thinking skills. One of our many talented teachers, program facilitators, and mentors. Or just maybe it is our commitment to taking full responsibility for your child's education. No hidden fees or costs. Regardless of what it is, let us help your child reach their full potential. Boost Academy is currently enrolling students of grades 4 through 12. Visit www.boostbahamas.com to apply now.
Best rates, no limits. Best rates, no limits.
BTC gives more savings on the best fiber internet. It's super fast with super savings in every package. Compare and see for yourself. Enjoy up to 150 megabits per second plus 157 TV channels and unlimited home phone minutes for only $99.99.
Best rates, no limits.
Visit a BTC store to sign up for the best internet experience on the Bahamas' best fiber network. Conditions apply.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, this government was nowhere to be seen.
Your aid is coming from the U.S. What are you getting from the Bahamian government?
Nothing at all. Survivors questioned if help from the government would ever arrive.
As relief supplies are now finally arriving, volunteers complain about Bahamian government red tape.
At this point in time, we are on our own and we're trying to get our government officials, please come down here and show your faces.
When they were needed most, this government was nowhere to be found.
This has been a paid political announcement by the PLP.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Okay, y'all, it's time to vote. Okay, it's that season. It's around the corner. Everybody got questions. It's, advanced polling information is coming out, but it's been out, and just more activity around it. I've got joining me, good friend of the show, one of my favorite people for the work that he's doing, Matt Aubrey, executive director there at ORG, the Organization for Responsible Governance, and then a young superstar whose face I'm seeing everywhere now, engagement coordinator, Stefan Evans. Stefan, I said your name correctly, right? I didn't screw it up.
Yeah, you did. Thanks.
Oh, look at God, won't he do it? Stefan, Matt, it's so good to have you guys on. The reason why we're doing this today was that I get a lot of questions regarding, this process of election. Can I vote? Can I not vote? How will this work? Am I eligible because I moved last week? No. Am I not eligible? How does this advanced polling situation work? And now the question is, and that's one, y'all, we still don't know for sure if you're quarantined, are there any special exemptions for your movement to vote, etc. I want to start with this question. What is the most common question asked, what you found with regards to this process of preparation and voting? And Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, and I think, again, just for a quick background, the Organization for Responsible Governance has been working for a long time about really making sure that citizens have a proper and an appropriate role in governance, and recognizing that that's not necessarily the structure that we have set up around us. We want to make sure we provide resources and training for citizens to learn better about the system of governance that they're bound to, how to get involved, what types of skills would help them to facilitate that. And under that auspices, our engagement team under the leadership of Stefan launched this year as the Year of the Active Citizen. Looking at how we can, teach folks to feel comfortable in voicing their opinions and work collectively to make those opinions known to those who've been elected to represent them. And in preparation for an election that we thought might be a little bit down the line, Stefan has been working with a really incredibly dynamic team of young superstar Bahamians on developing out a resource to make sure that folks, particularly those new voters, as well as some who just have been voting historically based on party or personality, to better value that vote and look at how they can get the most out of it. And that led to the creation of what we now are offering free to everybody, a pre-election preparedness kit. It's on our website on orgtransparency.com, and you can look for the link that says voter resources, and you'll find a page with all kinds of information, including all the different candidates that would have just nominated. But then you'll find this kit, and this kit is chock full of information, and I'm going to let Stefan talk a little bit about that process. But we encourage folks to look to it. Because the question, going back to your original inquiry, that we get is how do I get involved? How do I ensure that my vote is going to matter, and why should I vote? I guess that's probably the biggest issue, right? Right.
Yeah.
So the kit speaks to not only why and what that looks like, but it's an essential resource, we feel, for folks to feel comfortable to express themselves and really see that vote as a tremendously value asset and not give it away at undervalue. So Stefan, I don't know, you may want to talk a little bit about that as well, because you've been really in the mix with it.
Yeah, to say that this was an expedited process that we didn't have to expect to bring to a close so quickly is an understatement. We've been working incredibly hard, so hats off to everyone that has been a part of this project. I think answering your question, Nahaj, is actually a pretty decent place to start, because the question that I have been getting is, am I eligible to vote? As a matter of fact, there are a lot of persons who have assumed automatically that they're not eligible to vote because they have moved or because they didn't get registered before the House was dissolved. And the answer is actually there are a decent number of persons that are registered. There certainly, as has been the topic since the calling of the snap election, many voters that have been disenfranchised. But based on the information that we have collected, any person that was officially registered to vote before August 19th, including persons that voted, were registered for the 2017 general election, for the most part are eligible because of this new permanent voter registry, which definitely needs a lot more public education for persons to really
Yes.
understand what it is and how it works. If you voted in the 2017 general election and you have not moved or have not changed your name, then you were automatically added to the permanent voter registry. Now, if you did move, there is still an option for you to vote in your previous constituency. If your name hasn't changed, which I imagine there will be a number of persons who do that. And to be completely honest, I am not sure if that is being discouraged for persons voting in the constituency that they lived in before. But what I will say is that because of the way that the registry is set up this time, you can vote in the last constituency you lived in if you moved and didn't get the opportunity to officially change your address.
Hold, that's big, Stefan, because I have to ask this. A lot of folks have been displaced, right? Dorian displaced
Right.
a lot of people. And, you know, that was 2 years ago,
Right.
right? They haven't officially moved because they want to go back home and they don't have a house
Right.
to call their own. What happens to those folks? Are they not, can they go in their constituency if they, like, what
Well,
happens?
and this here is the problem, because the expectation was that we were going to go through this process a little more smoothly and gracefully, and so there are many loopholes and things that were just left to the discretion of the people. So in a picture perfect process, persons would have gone to register and transfer their addresses to be able to vote in this upcoming general election. But there have been a few allowances that have been made in addition to being able to vote in your last constituency, because if you've lost your voter's card, which many persons have lost as well, you can actually vote with your passport, and once you're on that registry. And I guess it's a benefit, but a challenge at the same time is that there is no way to clean that up or to fix these loopholes or problems in advance of this election, because we're here. And so whatever is allowable is the only information that we were able to pull together and give out to the public. But I know that every situation will be different. And so I encourage persons to try to the best of their ability to get in contact with the parliamentary registry, because all we could do is try to educate people on what is allowable at this time.
And so that's not allowable. What's not allowable is, because that's what I want to make sure. If you've been displaced, but you don't have, a permanent address per se, right? You live with someone else, so your name isn't on the electrical bill. You're not the holder of the lease. You're staying with someone. Is that person, because they have been out, or away from their home in Abaco, because it's no longer there, but they are a constituent there, they can't register to vote at this point? Are they kind of like homeless, stateless? Is that what it is?
Yes,
Sorry,
I go ahead. I think as it stands, I mean, no one can register further now than if wherever you would have been in the process. So some folks did take the step to officially change their address with the parliamentary register. And Stefan and his team have been sharing voting information from the get-go. Here's how to register, here's where to do that, here's how to so on the website on orgtransparency.com and the voters resources, you would have even found information on how to transfer your address. That period has closed, and that's, I guess that's what's to be understood is whatever you would have done before. And there were some folks who were able to take advantage of that or were on top of it. We don't have any official numbers on how that was done or how many folks have not had the opportunity, but we do recognize that with that snap election, a lot of folks who either didn't get a chance to resolve that or weren't aware are going to find themselves in a circumstance. So to clarify, the best thing we can recommend, and this is in the kit, is to reach out to the registrar and figure out where your stance is, what that looks like, if there are any provisions that have been made. And there's more information that we realize is going to come out. Lots of questions around the process. So what you'll find in the kit, though, is as much information that could be verified and valued, where and how, what you can expect before the election, what the voting process is, when electioning, what can you expect, and how can you, when folks come to you asking for your to represent you, how you can identify your priorities and identify and ask questions of them to ensure that they understand that this is not just a matter of them telling you what they're going to do and you can endorse that or not, but you can actually speak to what your interests are and identify for them what the expectations might be.
And advanced polling, what are how much information do you guys know or understand with this process of advanced polling? We know that there are certain people who are eligible for advanced polling, and there is an online registration that is happening as well. Stefan, what details can you give us?
So we have the basic information that was released on the advanced poll. So basically, persons that are eligible to participate are persons who are living with disabilities or persons who are 65 years or older, someone who is a registered voter, either who have already gone through the process or have automatically been added to the permanent registry. And if you are likely to be hospitalized or will be receiving special medical care on the day of election, you can also participate. If you are ill or because of pregnancy or recent childbirth, won't be able to vote in your constituency on the day of election, you can also participate in the advanced poll. And then, of course, qualified overseas voters who expect to be out of country on election day may also participate. In addition to that, the final two categories are persons that are running for office in the next election who would have participated in the infamous nomination day, and their spouses, and election agents who will be working the polls. Now, some of those categories have not been completely laid out in a way that gives you all of the detail.
Exactly.
Because if you think about pregnancy or recent childbirth, that could be interpreted in several different ways. So once again, we have a case for electoral reform.
Oh no, wait.
And
What's the other way? How can that be interpreted in other ways? The pregnancy or
Not the pregnancy, but illness, which is described. So it says illness, pregnancy, or childbirth, and so that there's some categories within that space as to why you could or why you not be able to be there that day of.
yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Stefan, finish that thought there for me.
yeah, no, so and I was just going to go on to say that this calls for electoral reform, because when you have things that are difficult to interpret and there hasn't been enough education on how these things work, they should really be really simple processes. What you end up with is mass confusion, and now we have a short period of time to try and get people as much information as they can. And the honest truth is that the registry may not be able to answer every call of every confused person. There are going to be a lot of people. So the best thing that we can do is utilize resources like this to try and get as much information as we can, so that at least if we find ourselves having to make contact with the Parliamentary Registry Department, that we go with a basic understanding of where we may or may not fall. But an important concept would be that we've been talking about for quite some time, of a fixed election date that would have given persons a better idea of how when they would need to have these things done by. And I know that people say, Bahamians are last minute, but at the same time, I don't think that the concept of a country accepting that an acceptable level of governance is that we are just going to shift the way that everything happens at the drop of a dime, and everybody just needs to know how and when to move. That's actually really a poor way to lead people forward. And when you're talking about cultures and behavioral changes that have taken place as a result of the COVID-19 restrictions and even the safety that is around it, there are definitely more questions than answers. And so this was really just our way to say the more information that we could get to try and make informed decisions around how the process works and who we want to lead us forward in these trying times, the better off we will be. And so we're just encouraging people to get as much as they can.
And I think that's just one thing to underscore throughout the kit. What you'll see is also tips on how to stay safe. So as folks are coming and walking around your neighborhood, your constituencies, there is that expectation of interaction, and we want folks to make sure that they can understand. You still need to make sure you're social distancing. Talk to somebody through a window, through a door. Tell them to give you a call instead of trying to talk to you face to face. Make sure that everybody's got masks. Demand that. There's no point in putting yourself at risk through this process. We also have some thoughts and just reiterations around making sure to take all precautions when it comes to the election. We're very apprehensive about what's going to come on election day, so that we can ensure that folks stay safe and we don't then see a surge on top of the surge.
Yeah.
We have to. I don't think there can be enough encouragement for folks to be conscious of what that is, both those voters as well as those looking to campaign. And so the kit speaks a bit to that. And the final, not the final, but I think an important part that I just want to underscore, and Stefan, if you could talk about what you and the committee really, how you came to this, is the process that I don't think we've all been trained on, is how to talk to folks who are coming to you and giving you a promise, a manifesto, their description of what they're going to achieve. How do you deal with that? What do you say to make sure that your interests are invested, and how do you ensure that what they say is realistic in that process? Stefan, you may want to share a bit of what your team's thoughts were on that.
Right. The first thing that I would say to that is, if you are politically affiliated, you know who you want to vote for. You don't know you with this group, you with that group, you going with this one or with that one. It doesn't matter. That should not stop you from getting as much information on what people's plans actually are. Because at the end of the day, someone is going to be the next Prime Minister of the Bahamas. You are going to have a representative. And there's a probability that that representative may or may not be the person that you voted for. Now, why that's important to understand is because that means that the person who will represent your needs for the next maybe 5 years, up to 5 years. You need to know what their philosophies and their stances, because the decisions that they make or don't make will impact you. They will impact the way that you live, the way that you move around, the way that you can pay your bills, the way that you can work. And we may not have seen the direct connection between who is in power in every single one of those very seemingly minute details before. But now, as a result of this situation, I don't think that this is a revelation that is new. I just think that a lot of the cracks and the flaws and even some of the great parts of the system have been really exposed. And now we see the direct implication of every decision that is made in leadership on our everyday lives as Bahamian people. So what that means is that the more you know about each candidate, the better, because one of them is going to win. And so if that's not the person that you voted for, you're going to have a representative. You have no clue who they are. There are lots of people that literally don't even know who the MP is, period. You don't know how in tune they are with the needs of your community. You don't know what their plan is. You don't know if their plan is realistic or actionable. And so these are the sorts of questions that we want to encourage people from a social safe distance, preferably through your window if you can, to ask campaigners when they come to your door. Like who are you? What are your philosophies? Or what is your tangible action plan? What are the top 3 problems in my constituency? Do you know what they are? And then having your own list of what you think should be addressed is a really, really important way to be able to engage the system in a way that's meaningful. So that way, no matter what happens, you at least have an idea that will help you to work with people. And when we don't know who our representatives are and we don't know what their philosophies are, we close the door to any collaboration that might happen.
Yes.
Because believe it or not, whether you support a party or don't support a party, once that person is in place, the less you know, the less you can do to help and make your community a better place.
Let me ask you guys before, sorry, Matt, let me give you wanted to ask this before we go. I asked at the beginning, what's the most common question asked? And you said, am I eligible? What is the most common question you wished persons would ask with regards to the voting process?
I think for me, and one thing we've encouraged folks is, how is that thing you promised gonna happen? You can say a lot. We're going to give lots of jobs. We're going to increase this. We're going to reduce this tax. We're going to do, but nothing happens for free or magically. So where's that going to come from? If we're spending money on this program, where does that mean we're going to cut money from? If you say you're going to do this and it hasn't happened in 10 years, well, when will it happen? And how are you going to make sure it happens? If what we see is a process where the cabinet has a tremendous amount of power in the last administration, and if the person you've chosen is not able to influence directly your priorities, you're gonna have a difficulty with saying, well, that thing didn't happen. So how can that thing happen, and how do you plan to make sure it happens and you're accountable for us?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Unfortunately, we gotta go. Matt Aubrey, Stephon Evans, where can we find the kit, guys?
You can find it on our website at orgtransparency.com/voter-resources. All of the information
Say that again for me.
That's orgtransparency.com/voter-resources. Or if you just go to orgtransparency.com, you'll see the voter resources section. And the book is there. The handbook is there for the pre-election kit at the top. And then information on the candidates and other information that we've been able to gather. And we're regularly posting on our social media platforms, which are all either Org Bahamas Foundation or the Organization for Responsible Governance.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate the time. As always, Matt Aubrey and Stephon Evans there from Org, there to just give us some information. I like that question, though. I like that they're going to make tons of promises. The question is, how will they be able to deliver? And that's always where it gets sticky, right? It's always sticky when you ask, okay, but then how does that affect this thing, right? You said you wanted to reduce the debt, but we got to borrow. So you're not really able to reduce the debt as quickly as you said you could reduce the debt, right? Okay, so, you just got to pay attention to these things. Everybody sounds sweet on the outside, but they really got to give us strategy. This election, please, everyone, the goal is to be safe. Obviously, we have tons of time. And I say tons of time because it feels like forever before the 16th. And so there'll be a lot of energy. But what is not changing right now is COVID-19. What is not relenting is the amount of people we're losing. So there will be dollar wine, and there will be, libations. There will be this need for a distraction. And I understand the level of COVID fatigue. But we are very aware that it is anywhere. It doesn't matter what party you run with. It doesn't matter who your people is. It doesn't matter how much money you got. If you have life insurance, if you don't have life insurance, it doesn't matter if you have medical or not. This is just one of those non-discriminating situations. So I want everyone to please be safe. 16 more families have been mourning, and they have now been added to the public number, the death toll, which is already, and has for a while superseded the original or the Dorian death toll based on the official number of Dorian. But we know the Dorian was catastrophic for us. So please stay in prayer and pray for your neighbors. This is a process and a time when things are different, and we've got to be there for each other. Please get vaccinated if you can. If you are medically clear, talk to your physician. Do get vaccinated. Though we know that the efficacy for some vaccines is dropping, it is better to be safe there than sorry. Some folks will need all of the protection they can get. So please do get vaccinated if you can, but take all of your zinc, your vitamin D, go on the beach, drown a little. When I say drown a little, let the salt water catch you, when you can't swim. It's happening to me all the time. Let it catch you. Go take a walk, all of that good stuff. And don't congregate in crowds, man. Enjoy your day. It's Tuesday. We got a long way to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We got a long way. So we got a lot of fun to do. Everyone take care. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We're out.